This isn't a magic trick. It's not even a tax loophole. It's a way of handling your finances that's so clever, it sometimes borderline feels illegal. But it isn't. Everything I'm about to tell you is perfectly legal, but the way the system is set up might make you wonder if it's truly accurate. Imagine this for a second. It's payday. You wake up, check your phone, coffee in one hand, anxiety in the other. You open your banking app and think, wow, I worked hard for this money. Then payday comes, and suddenly your money goes on a mysterious vacation. Taxes. Gone. Vanished. Reduced to atoms. Now, cut to another morning. Jeff Bezos wakes up. Elon, he wakes up thinking, should I launch a rocket, tweet something unhinged, or do both at the same time? Neither of them checks their bank balance, because they don't need to. They don't wonder how much tax they owe. They wonder things like, should I buy another company today? Should I send a rocket into space? Should I tweet something that crashes a market before lunch? And here's the part that sounds like a bad joke, but isn't. You, yes, you, pay more tax than they do. Not because you messed up, not because they cheated, but because you're playing a different game. On the same board with completely different rules. This isn't a crime story. It's not about offshore accounts, shady islands, or secret vaults. This is a story about something far more impressive. A legal magic trick. So elegant, so boring on paper, and so powerful that it makes entire governments shrug and say, well, that's allowed. It's the strategy quietly used by the richest people alive, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's how it works. Jeff Bezos didn't become wealthy because someone paid him a giant paycheck every month. Elon Musk didn't become wealthy because he negotiated a better hourly rate. They bought things. That's it. That's the first move. Stocks, companies, assets that quietly grow while everyone else is arguing on social media. Here's the funny rule about money that nobody explains properly. If something you own goes up in value, the government pretends not to notice. You can double your wealth on paper, triple it, multiply it into the stratosphere, and as long as you don't sell, the tax system politely looks away like it didn't see a thing. You could buy something cheap, it could become insanely valuable, and according to the rules, you're still poor. Poor on paper, very comfortable in real life. Most people miss this detail because most people eventually have to sell. You sell to pay rent, you sell to buy groceries, you sell to live. And the moment you sell, the tax bill arrives like a waiter who's been standing there patiently the entire time. Billionaires learn one principle early. Selling is expensive, so they don't do it. Jeff Bezos owns a massive piece of Amazon. Elon Musk owns a massive piece of Tesla. As those companies grow, their wealth grows with them, quietly, relentlessly. No paycheck, no salary, no income to tax. On paper, they look almost unemployed. Which sounds ridiculous until you understand the next part. Because at this point, everyone asks the same question. Fine, they don't sell, but how do they actually pay for anything? Excellent question. This is where the story gets fun. Instead of selling their assets, they borrow against them. Think of it like this. Jeff Bezos walks into a bank, not nervously, not apologetically. He doesn't bring documents in a folder. He brings confidence. He says, I own an absurd amount of extremely valuable stuff. The bank looks at his assets and basically says, say no more. They hand him cash, a lot of it. And here's the punchline. Borrowed money is not income. If you earn money, it's taxed. If you borrow money, it's treated like you're just temporarily holding it. So Jeff gets the cash, Elon gets the cash, and the tax bill, nothing. They use borrowed money to live. Homes, jets, yachts, projects that look suspiciously like hobbies with billion-dollar price tags. Now, someone always jumps in at this point and says, but loans have interest. Yes, they do. And that interest is tiny compared to how fast their assets grow. Their wealth grows faster than the cost of borrowing. So even while spending massive amounts of money, they're still getting richer. Need more cash? Borrow again. Loan coming due? Refinance it. The bank doesn't panic. The collateral keeps growing. It's the calmest relationship in finance. Everyone's happy, except, of course, the tax collector, who still sees nothing to tax. And this isn't some exclusive underground trick. Every major bank offers this service. There's just one tiny requirement. You already need to be insanely rich. Now here's where the story becomes almost unfairly elegant. Jeff Bezos never sells his stock. Elon Musk never sells his stock. They borrow their entire life. Then, one day, they die. And the tax system does something that feels like it belongs in a fantasy novel. It resets everything. All that growth that happened over decades, the system pretends it never happened. The assets are handed to the next generation with a brand new starting value. It's as if history was deleted. Those massive gains? Gone. So when the heirs sell a portion to pay off loans, there's little to no tax. Or they borrow again and keep the machine running. The cycle doesn't stop. It simply changes hands. No selling during life, no tax during death. Perfectly legal, perfectly boring on paper. Perfectly devastating in reality. This is why people get angry when they finally understand it. Because the system doesn't reward effort, it rewards ownership. If you work, money flows to you and gets taxed immediately. If you own, money grows quietly and waits. Time becomes a weapon. Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk aren't villains in this story. They're proof of concept. Different personalities, same strategy. One wears black and tweets chaos. The other smiles politely and buys another planet-sized company. They didn't invent the rules. They just follow them flawlessly. And here's the uncomfortable part. This system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. It protects old money, it rewards patience, and it quietly punishes anyone who needs cash right now. If you live paycheck to paycheck, you don't have the luxury of waiting. You sell, you pay. If you're already wealthy, waiting is effortless. People love to ask, isn't this unfair? That depends on whether you're asking morally or legally. Legally, it's immaculate. Morally? Well, that's why we're talking about it. The real irony is this. Billionaires aren't breaking the system. They're obeying it better than anyone else. Every loophole exists because someone powerful insisted it should. This isn't rebellion. It's paperwork. And once you see how the game actually works, one thing becomes painfully clear. Jeff Bezos didn't outwork you. Elon Musk didn't out-hustle you. They out-positioned you. They live in a world where money isn't earned, it's activated. And until the rules change, this quiet little strategy will remain the most effective legal tax escape ever created. Not hidden, not secret, just uncomfortable. And now that you know it, you'll never look at taxes the same way again. Because once that idea settles in, it starts messing with your head in small, uncomfortable ways. You start noticing how often the word income shows up in your life. Income tax, income bracket, proof of income. Everything revolves around income. But Jeff and Elon don't live in an income-based world. They live in an ownership-based one. They don't ask, how much did I make this year? They ask, how much do I control? And control is treated very differently than effort. You could almost imagine the tax system as a very polite but very firm bouncer. If you show up with a paycheck, it stops you immediately. Sorry, I need to take my cut before you go in. But if you show up with assets, the bouncer steps aside, opens the rope, and says, take your time, no rush. This is why billionaires don't panic during market swings the way everyone else does. They're not living on what the market gives them this month. They're living on what it might be worth decades from now. That patience changes everything. It changes how you see risk. It changes how you see time. It even changes how you see money itself. For most people, money is fuel. You burn it to survive. For them, money is leverage. You don't spend it, you lean on it. And when you lean on something heavy enough, it holds you up. Now, here's a detail that sounds small, but it explains a lot. Billionaires don't like cash. Cash just sits there. Cash doesn't grow. Cash gets taxed, inflated, and quietly disrespected. Assets, on the other hand, get special treatment. Assets get patience. Assets get forgiveness. Assets get invited back after death with a clean slate and a fresh start, which is wild when you really think about it. Imagine playing a video game where every time you lose, the game says, "It's okay, we'll pretend it never happened." That's basically what happens at the end of a billionaire's life. All those years of growth, deleted. All that tax liability, evaporated. The system gently closes the book and opens a new one for the next player. And this is where people usually get emotional. They say this is immoral, this is broken, this shouldn't be allowed. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The system didn't accidentally end up this way. It was built slowly, politely, and very intentionally. Every rule has a reason, and every reason had a lobbyist. Nothing about this is chaotic. It's organized, which is why it's so effective. Jeff Bezos doesn't need to call his accountant in a panic. The strategy is baked in. Elon Musk doesn't need to hide money. He just needs to not touch it. Silence is the strategy. The less they do, the less they owe. Now think about how upside down that is. In your world, doing nothing gets you nothing. In their world, doing nothing gets you richer. You hustle to survive. They wait to win. And the waiting is easy when you already own the board. This is also why billionaires talk about long-term thinking so much. It's not philosophy. It's math. Time is their greatest tax shelter. And the longer the timeline, the more absurd the result. That's why generational wealth is so difficult to break. The system doesn't just reward the first generation, it protects every generation after it. Once you're inside, gravity works in your favor. Which brings us to the part nobody likes hearing. This strategy is not designed for everyone. It can't be. It only works because most people can't use it. You need assets big enough to borrow against. You need banks willing to trust you. You need time you don't urgently need to monetize. In other words, you need to already be winning. That's why this isn't a hack. It's a moat. A very wide, very calm, and very legal moat. And once you're across it, you don't rush, you don't junk, you don't sell. You let time do the heavy lifting. People love to ask, so what's the takeaway? The takeaway isn't to get angry. Anger doesn't compound. The takeaway is to understand what the system values. It values ownership over effort. It values patience over speed. It values silence over activity. The moment you see that, your relationship with money changes. You stop chasing income like it's the final boss. You start paying attention to what lasts. Jeff Bezos didn't build Amazon thinking about taxes. Elon Musk didn't build Tesla thinking about taxes. They built things that outlived any single year's bill. The tax benefits weren't the goal, they were the side effect. And that's the real twist in this story. The most powerful tax strategy ever created doesn't feel like a trick when you're using it. It feels boring, it feels slow, and it feels inevitable. And that's exactly why it works. So the next time someone says, billionaires should just pay more, remember this. They don't avoid taxes by being sneaky. They avoid taxes by being patient. They don't run from the system. They let the system run past them. And until the rules change, ownership will always whisper while labor shouts, and the whisper will always win.